Welcome to the Innovative Pedagogy Podcast, where we inquire with the greatest minds in academia, where innovation, creativity, and authenticity meet the best teaching and learning practices for educators all over the world. Most importantly, hoping all those we come in touch with leave inspired and ready to change their world. Here's our host, Chris Garcia.
Welcome back to the Innovative Pedagogy Podcast. I am your host, Chris Garcia, and today I am thrilled to welcome back Pejman Salehi to the show. Pejman is the Vice President Academic at Conestoga College in Ontario, Canada. He's been leading innovative work that bridges technology, creativity, and education, helping higher ed adapt to the next generation of leaders. In our last episode, we explored Pejman's EdTech magazine article on how higher ed leaders can adapt to generational shifts. However, today we're diving deep into the world of esports, gaming, and immersive learning to explore how these spaces are transforming student engagement, learning design, and institutional culture. Welcome back to the show, Pejman. It's great to have you here with us again.
Thank you for having me, Chris. Very excited to be here and having a conversation about this really exciting topic.
Absolutely. It's esports is a something that I know that we made a little reference to the last time we were together, but now I'm excited that we can actually dedicate an entire episode to this and to the world of how this is really changing our culture. So going back to that, our last conversation, we kind of talked about generational shifts in higher education, Generation Z, Generation Alpha. But how do you think that esports and gaming specifically are fitting into that picture of generational change?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think that's why probably we see, I mean, gaming was always there, I think, but that's why I think probably we see a lot of interest in esport all of a sudden is basically that generational shift. I think the new generation, my generation or probably your generation, we were looking at game as an entertainment, having fun and doing all those pieces, which is still the case, right?
Right.
But I see sometimes the new generation actually use these online game environments, esports setups as almost like as part of their social life. Basically, if they want to just have a chat, they play game while they're just talking to each other, right? They just they kind of they socialize that way. So it's part of their social, I would say, interaction with each other. So it comes really naturally for them. And if you think about an environment in the college or university for people to just to go and just feel comfortable. We all comfortable with the environments that we are really used to. So they see it not just only as something they're playing games. It's really familiar for them. That's why we go there and we talk about it. I had a couple of years ago, I had an experience of I had a friend who was much younger, and then I asked him to just to invited him to some event, and he said, "Oh no, I have an appointment." So I thought he's going to go out with friends, but no, he had an appointment on a gaming. Well, on online gaming with someone across the globe, and they want to play a game, have fun, and have a chat, right? So it kind of was an eye-opening for me. Say, well, it is more than just gaming and fun. It's like socializing, interaction, and that's when we bring them to the institutions, in post-secondary particular institutions. It sounds familiar, and that's why it makes them comfortable, and then we can just really unleash the power of those environments and being immersed in terms of the way after they're talking or thinking about even learning as well.
No, I love that because as you're saying that, you're reminding me even just some of the data and the statistics that I've seen happening here. I'm going to just speak on Southern California because that's kind of my sphere of where I live and the schools that I work with. But there have been numbers that we've seen with certain of our school districts that show higher rates of attendance when there's esports involved, and also a decline in suspension rates. And I think a lot of it has to do with the community, with the accountability, with the membership. But it's beautiful to hear about how that impact even can shift to higher education. Kind of a question a little bit on the offset. Do you notice students, do you see a correlation sometimes, even with students in their academics, based off of their involvement with esports, even in the higher educational sphere?
Well, I mean, unfortunately, we haven't done the study on that because you need to just be really fact-based. But I can say anecdotally at Conestoga, it was during the pandemic, we started our esport program. When I say program, meaning that the whole esport ecosystem we created. So I can definitely tell you that students, they stay on campus longer hours. They use that as a student space, and obviously when you stay on campuses longer, I would say that I can tell you just probably just be more successful in education. And again, I think you mentioned as well mental health, and it's also another outlet for them to just like to, combat their anxiety, try to just like, have fun again, just enjoy it, right? I used to say to my students, well, I mean, when you come to college, part of it is, of course, academics and learning things, and the other part is student life, and you need to enjoy your time. You're going to go to post-secondary probably once in your life, an undergrad level, and then you need to have that piece as well. So again, probably as a good thing, probably we should just like look into that piece. But definitely, I can tell you from the student engagement with the campus, we are higher. The campuses that we have they have esport, I can say student satisfaction in terms of facilities and how they feel comfortable is higher. But it's an interesting thing. Probably need to look into the correlation between that and academic success.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. And then kind of talking about that ecosystem, have
Mhm.
you noticed even just observationally, are there any similar majors or interests of study within even students that are involved within like the team dynamics and culture of esports? And the reason why I bring that up is because
Mhm.
here in San Diego, some of our local universities, a lot of students that are involved with esports are trying to make a petition to open up more video game design classes rather than just computer science classes. And that's just it's an initiative that they're trying to just continue to move forward, and
Mhm.
it's actually making some noise and building a little momentum. So, is there any correlation and any just thing when it comes to anecdotally just looking at like I've observed this and yeah, I've seen a correlation of anything?
Yeah. I think that's true. I think it was almost like also for us is actually maybe I would say it's a little bit the other way around. We when we created our esport ecosystem programs at
Hmm.
the college, that was the time that we started launching a new game arts program. We had a
Okay.
game program, and then so the success of that program is just like really high. So I can tell probably just like a little bit of a correlation. So, oh yeah, the Conestoga is really serious about this, and then they can just like we can now then we can do more stuff, and this is going to be really great for us. So that's for sure. One thing actually we are doing because our college has different campuses, we see a lot of desire from our students. They're asking us why only this campus has an esport hub. We need to create it in every campus. So we actually have plans now to create two, three more of these because we say, well, it's not fair. Only students in this particular programs and in this particular campus, they have access to that. For us to be able to have access to the facility, we need to go to another campus, right? So that's something that we are putting in the plans in terms of our capital development because they see the value of that and
Yeah.
that piece. But purposefully, we created our program next to adjacent to our computer science programs and creative technology programs. So that kind of that just like almost like created that type of alignment. But the success of some of our programs in that area, I can tell you, is because of the our eSport program because we demonstrated as a college to be a leader in this area, and students just like responded positively to that. Yeah.
That's a beautiful transition next to just these next few questions that I have because we're going to be diving into kind of like skills, learning, and real world readiness. But you've mentioned before, and I'm bringing the immersive learning simulations from like the firefighting AR VR case study you gave us. And the reason why I'm going to bring that in is because when I had the opportunity of checking out the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas back in 2024, the entire video game development was on the trajectory of becoming immersive. AR and VR are now going to be strongly immersed within video game technologies. We're starting to see that now, especially as the holidays are approaching, Black Friday.
Yeah.
Just the whole like getting everyone wants a headset now, and they're just diving into this and seeing the impact of it. But going back into that, how might similar technologies be applied in esports? And I kind of answered it a little bit, but thinking of like immersive learning, immersive gameplay, how might similar technologies be applied in esports training or academic programs? And even if it's an immersive AR VR situation, do you believe they could still help with teamwork, communication, and even strategic thinking?
Oh, absolutely. I think that I think some of the elements of the esport that we were talking about. For example, I think that teamwork collaboration is
Hmm.
essential in esports. Like any esport team that we have, a lot of us we're talking about like major ones. They are a lot of them where they have teams, right? Okay, so the teamwork, critical thinking, problem solving, conflict resolution among the people who are playing, right? Because outside the environment and things that are really transferable. And when we talk about talking about immersive areas, as I said, like students and a new generation that looks at these virtual and almost immersive environments as if they are real, as if they're an extension of a reality that we are living in, and
Hmm.
that makes them they switch between them. Like maybe for the older generation, maybe even for myself. for me, I need to put myself into virtual environment and take myself out, and need to have that mental switch. But it seems that that falls under our generational, like, discussion that we had last time. For them, it's seamless, moving between the two. They're just it's the transition seamless, and as a result of that, you can provide those opportunities for them to be able to just, like, to do teamwork, to have discussions, to have conflict resolution, solve problems. And as the technology gets better and better, as we know every day,
Mm-hmm.
the capacity and capability of those virtual environments becomes better and better. And then so we can put more authentic stuff inside them, then they can just, like, easily just utilize them. When we were talking about, for example, last time, firefighting, or we have, like, programs in power line, ambulance, like, simulation of things like that. So when we put those simulation, like those module inside a virtualized environment, because they don't have they don't need to, it's for them really effortless to get in that environment.
Yes.
That environment is authentic, the learning goes through the roof because they don't see the difference. Like, again, I'm still probably, when I go to this environment, in part of my thing is, oh, this is all like fun and games, but if I want to do serious stuff, I need to get out of here, right?
Right,
But for
right.
that, that's not the case. The case is that, well, it is another environment. Actually, in some cases, when it comes to accessibility, right, when inclusiveness in terms of learning, actually, some folks might actually feel more comfortable in a virtualized environment as opposed to real life. So I think that's really powerful. It makes it, like, the future of education really, really powerful.
No, that, as you're saying that, that's reminding me of so I have the opportunity of working a lot with our juvenile and court system schools here at the county office in San Diego, California, and I was teaching a lesson the other day regarding um, the game development, my game design, retro, 8-bit type of game. But within that, I always teach the kids what esports is and how it looks like. And all the games that we have accessible, and even in our future ready lab that we have, are team-based games. And some of the things that I thought that really actually just tugged my heart were that I have some of the most challenging students that came to this experience, about 13 of them. And these are
Mhm.
students that have been suspended or expelled, actually more expelled, or asked to leave their school districts, and they end up going to these systems of support schools. But what caught my attention and what caught the teacher's attention is, and even more the teacher, is that she said that during the regular school day, these kids are disrespectful towards each other. They're threatening to each other. But when it came for them all playing, I'm not going to say the game they were playing online, but it came a team-based game. And I'll tell you, it ranges between League of Legends all the way through Marvel Rivals and Fortnite and whatnot. It was one of those three. But either way, all those team-based games, she said that even though there was kids on the way to school on that field trip that were threatening and wanted to fight each other, they were like working together. And
Yes.
for some reason, the video games brought them together to work together as a team, to communicate, to be respectful, to accomplish that one goal. And I thought, like, look at this. It's almost as if it's a form of intervention as well. And I know
Yeah.
you get a chance to working with the higher ed, you get to see a lot more of the kids on different spectrums. But I'm trying to present also. These are some of the most challenging kids that we might have in our public school system
Yeah.
that are still benefiting from the likes of esports. So what are your thoughts on that? Just kind of like being able to like know that it impacts higher ed, but it also can impact some of the kids that have some of the most biggest social and emotional needs that sometimes are a challenge in schools.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, again, it falls under a couple of categories. One of them is basically, as I said, I talked about accessibility, right? Okay.
Hmm.
Talked about, like, through virtualized environment, through esports like environments and immersive environments, we will give everyone a front seat to a certain, like, experiences and then those pieces, and we can talk about it later. So that accessibility, no matter how, like, what socioeconomical background you have, what neurodiversity you have, that accessibility is really, and then we can just tailor it to people as well. I mean, as the technology just advances, that's really important. Obviously, that creates that piece. But the other thing I would say is that, like, if folks maybe just, like, they have some difficulty in terms of, like, communicating with each other, teamwork, and things like that, it's almost like, it is a fun environment. It reminds you of
Yeah,
having.
it is.
That's and human beings are by definition just like a tribal, like, kind of like being, in terms of, like, we all look to be like to be part of a team, and through
Right.
teamwork we want to just solve a problem, right? Okay. And traditionally, a lot of younger people at post-secondary and secondary schools, they would go to sport to just basically have an outlet for themselves to just release the energy, or just like to exercise their, like, the collaborative, just like, differences and things like that. They would like, that piece. And I think that esport, part of it, when I was thinking about our conversation, esport also creates that environment for them, which plays on strength and having fun. Immediately your guards go down. Immediately we're having fun now, right? Okay. I mean, we are in post-secondary education. I used to teach, I still sometimes teach, and you're a professor, you're teaching. Like, all our goal is that how to make education fun for our students, right? Okay. So
Right.
they don't get bored. That's the main goal. Like, from elementary to like, to the graduate level, the goal of the instructors is how make the environment really, like, fun and exciting. And then through that environment, hopefully we can just like teach the things that we want to teach. And esport immediately just brings us to that step. So when you enter that environment, immediately your guards are down. We're having fun first and foremost, and then we
Right.
learning, right? Okay. So I think you are really touching up on a really good point in terms of like whether you have some challenges, like, on a personality wise, whether you have challenges in terms of neurodiversity, immediately you feel like there's a welcoming environment, and then now you already solved the 80% of the problem, so we're not going to get bored here. And then you need to focus on the 20%, and we need to just like now teach them something, tangible. So I think that's what I was thinking about it. Like, that's something that's, it's really important to point out, right? So.
No, and this is something now that that leads me to this next question. I love how our your answers are really nice segues to the following questions, and that is, I want to talk a bit more about. We might have to copyright this section because I've had the opportunity of seeing how video games and, well, predominantly esport can be integrated within curriculum, even K through 12th grade, and being able to see it at the elementary level, at the middle school level, at the high school level. But my question to you is this, and this is something that I'm eager and I don't have an answer for, and that I'd be willing to explore. But you, as a professor, and at the same time as a director there at your school, and also as an innovator building out opportunities for esports at your university, how do you believe colleges and universities can integrate esports meaningfully, not just into like the competitions, but as part of the curriculum, student engagement, or even workforce development? How do you think that can look like more in the higher educational aspect?
It is a really important question, and I think that what we did, maybe I should explain to you how we went about this, the esport
Yeah.
at, and I'm kind of like, I think it was successful. I don't, so what we did was, when we started looking at it, we just like looked at it from the point of view of like, what is the? It was during the pandemic, and it was at
Hmm.
the time that there was an article written that like, oh, the esport is going to be like, how many billion-dollar industry and things like that. So it got our attention. We had some conversations before, but that was the start of it. So when we start looking at it, we start talking with some partners, and then we identify different aspects of esport. One of them was entertainment and student engagement. You want to come, the same as you have a cafeteria on campus, you have a esport hub, you can go and play, right? The other
Hmm.
piece was like basically our varsity team. So we said, well, the same way that we have a volleyball team and a football team, so we have a team of, basically, Call of Duty, right? Okay, that was a piece. And then the third part of it was the program with respect to esport. And as an academic at that time, that was really intriguing to me. As a matter of fact, we created a matrix of like skill sets that
Hmm.
that needs in esport industry, that we need to have that program for people to train in those areas. So
Wow. Okay.
we started with two programs. As a matter of fact, we were offering those two programs. We started to a program was on esport marketing, and then in the school of the School of Creative Industries, which I was leading at the time, we created a esport media production. So basically, that was the people who were just like, when we have a competition, we have a media production, we have a control room, we built it into the plan, a physical space. To have a control room, you have cameras, you just like have, you capture the screen capture and pump it out from the on Twitch or YouTube or what have you. And then we create a program, a 2-year diploma around that called esport media production, event media production. So that's something that we did from the academic point of view. And then soon we realized that there are other things that we can just also have esport to work on
Hmm.
or work for. So we have a radio production program, and in
Yeah.
radio, students we teach them just like how to just like present themselves, and then we start having shoutcasting. So they had a course, they come and do the play-by-play with esport. We have a journalism program. We were talking about like maybe bring the journalism students to do it, like there's the esport journalism, just talk about those pieces, right? Again, marketing we already had, but then we were talking about maybe we need to talk about branding, right? Okay, so bring
Yeah.
that. But something completely out of the because it is an event space, it is a substantial event space as well, and we were thinking about actually expanding it to what we called arena, which we are in the basically middle of design. Even our culinary school said, oh, you know what, we can just like look at this as an event space, and we
Hmm.
can just actually have food services for this. So again, like it created this really nice ecosystem from that standpoint. So I think we really talked about it, and I think if anyone else wants to do this, they need to just look at it from a different aspects, and not just one way or another. And I was in a conference in EDUCAUSE a couple of years ago, and we were talking about this, and it was funny interesting to see that esport was sitting in some colleges and universities sitting under the varsity, in some colleges sitting under academic, in some colleges
Yes.
under research, and but it showed that like how people looked at it, and if you look at it in a comprehensive way, it is an ecosystem. It's academic, varsity,
Right.
entertainment, student service, all of that, right? Okay, and that's from my point of view, that's really powerful for us to just do that. And then again, there are going to be a lot of jobs in that area as well. But as a side thing, for example, one of the other things that we did was, because it was adjacent to our School of Applied Computer Science and IT, we utilized our students in designing of the space and some of the practices we need to go through. For example, our data link needs to be really, really responsive. So we kind of like created and that was the technical stuff we did. But again, that was an opportunity again for students to just like know that this is another type of streaming service that we need to have, standard that we need to have. Yeah.
No, that's wonderfully said, and I really like the growth of that, and even just the aspect of you being able to tie it in where it's that argument that really doesn't have to be an argument, as if it's a part of the athletic department, ed tech, computer science, computer coding, or and it's like it's actually, it encompasses everything, and
Yeah.
that leads me to this next question that I have for you, and that is the growth and the generational relevance and equity of esports, and what is your belief, because this is a challenge that's happening across esports globally, and there's no right or wrong answer, because every region, every generation, every interest is very, very different. But what steps do you believe institutions should take to ensure that esports programs do remain inclusive across gender, social, economic, and accessibility lines?
Yeah, I think the first thing, they need to be mindful of that. They need to be
Hmm.
mindful of that, like that there that you need to first, in order to, if you want to just address a certain issue, first you need to acknowledge it, right? Okay, so you need to acknowledge there are going to be challenges with this, and like anything else, and then we need to just like plan for it. Like for example, like just like I know that we have, for example, in our college, what's the event we call it? Gaming for girls,
Okay.
right? Okay, so we bring students from high school, or maybe just middle, like really, really younger generations to come, and we bring our female students and female faculty. Everyone, there is a really fun just kind of type of like environment that we have for them. We have one of our faculty members who is a female, who is actually our coordinator of our game arts program. She's a gamer and all that, so she just runs a inclusive gaming club for in our campus with our student services. So I think we need to be mindful of, and we need to just like make sure that those aspects are there. As the industry improves, I think that that those aspects going to be included in the design of games, in the design of environments, and I'm very hopeful with that. But again, all of us, we need to advocating for that. We need to say, well, this
Hmm.
is a real thing, and we need to just look at those pieces. But on the flip side of it, as I think I started with this, I think, to be honest with you, compared to our, let's say, if you want to just like compare virtual space versus physical space, I do believe that virtual space is more off the bat is more inclusive.
Okay.
So I think that when you have a virtual environment, it is more inclusive than a physical environment, because you can travel, especially if you have physical difficulty. And then the other piece of it is that, and we can get to it, like maybe just like next advancements and what would be for the future. If you add this aspect that it is easier for the designer of a certain learning environment, okay,
Hmm.
to tailor-made or just like to have different types of environment designed to your or cater to your needs, right? Okay. That environment, that doing something like that, which is everyone's goal. We want to just have these personalized experiences. One can argue that it is easier to do that in a virtual environment than a physical environment, right? Okay. So if I, for example, wanted to, let's say I'm running a shop for like, let's say just heavy mechanics, right? Okay, auto mechanics and heavy equipment, right? Okay. So if a student has a physical disability, for them to be able to go up to the level of the engine bay for a 18-wheeler truck, that's going to be a challenge for them, right? Okay. But you can do that immediately, very easily in a virtual environment, right? Okay. So that's what I'm talking about whenever we're talking about like, front row seat for people. So I think from that standpoint, again, I don't disagree that there are going to be challenges, new challenges for virtualized environment. I would say what's the percentage of it? 10%, 15% they get sickness, motion sickness by getting in the VR. That's new set of challenges. Maybe we didn't think about it. But at the same time, I think the challenges we had, I think this type of environment, virtualized environment, creates a vehicle for us to be able to cater to broader type of audiences, and at the same time try to personalize the experiences easier than if you would have done in a regular like classroom or a shop or lab.
I love that. And it's interesting because now that leads us to the last few questions that I wanted to focus on. And that has to do with just the future of what this looks like. As you are as an expert and as a forerunner for a lot of these innovations that are taking place at your university, and you as well as just breaking ground and introducing a lot of this. How do you see the convergence of esports, artificial intelligence, and even immersive tech shaping the future of higher education? And I kind of want you, if you can answer this, imagining that these three things are actually working together as a whole with when it comes to esports, AI, and immersive tech. Because, and let me give you some background for that, and I'll ask the question again. And the reason why is because I was hearing a podcast from MIT about a year ago, and they were talking about how artificial intelligence now is going to be making an impact within our video games and when it comes to game developers. And one of the things that they brought up was a game developer now can create a video game, and using artificial intelligence, the game will now be personalized for the storyline, for the character, and it's almost as if it'll be a never-ending video game where it's going to be a video game that you will not be successful in beating. And the reason why is because it's personalized. It's continually just modifying to who you are as an individual, who your tactics, your gameplay, your imagination, your fantasies, everything. Where in the past you would create a video game and you would play it, and I'm never going to forget there was a situation, even my little brother and I, back in like 2013, 14, we played Marvel versus DC. We got it on Christmas morning, and we were done. By 6 p.m. that night, we had defeated the whole game. That was it. We were done.
Yeah.
And now it's like that may not ever happen again because of artificial intelligence. So let me ask you the question again, kind of knowing that in the background.
Yeah.
But how do you see the convergence of esports, AI, and immersive tech shaping the future of higher education?
Yeah, that's what actually would have been actually my point. You were very well put. So the way I see it, like in the future of education in general, I think it is the success of post-secondary education, and we talked about it last time as well. Part of it is because of generational kind of like changes and also availability of technology. It's going to be all about experience. So the content, of course, you're going to have content, right? We're never going to get rid of the content, but you have the content. But how the content is being delivered is going to be the utmost. It's going to be the difference between if my college is more successful than yours, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Because if we only focus on content, people can go to YouTube so people, they come to college for a reason. And the reason is not just the content, is how the content is being delivered, right? Okay. I don't know if you're familiar with the Education 4.0. It's a notion. Basically, it comes from Industry 4.0. It's basically what we are talking about. Is that it is the enablement of education and delivery of the content through technology, and those are a big part of it. And then personalized training and those pieces are all part of it. It's a philosophy that's going to shape the future, right? So when I looked at Luan, and you mentioned it very, very well, when we were looking at all these and intersectionality, all of them, it provides us with that environment to make the experience of education very, very pleasant, very accessible, very flexible, and at the same time very personalized, right? So I think one of the and I want to tie AI into this. One of the things that people are talking about AI is that the ability of AI to be able to personalize the from kind of like delivery of the content, right? Okay, and I think I mentioned this that there was a Bloom. Benjamin Bloom had a theory, and a theory was that okay, if we give everyone a one-on-one kind of like instruction or one-on-one attention, right? Okay, you immediately increase the performance of a learner by one degree on standard deviation, right? Okay. But the problem, and he viewed it as a problem because at the time when he was, he said it is completely impossible and cost prohibitive that for us to be able to just do one-on-one, right? So because your section size is 30, 40, 100. But with AI, we can do that. Now, tie that back into the virtualized environment, immersive technologies, and sport and esport. So, what is the main issue? I mean, we've been running creating simulations for our students, and we have a center to do that. But one of the most basically challenges that we have is that the fact that like creating in these experiences is extremely expensive, right? And then you creating different scenarios. Like, for example, if you create a game and if everyone knows how to beat that game, after 2-3 rounds, if you want to do learning, you know how to do it. It's the same as like, if someone give you an exam, you know the answers already, right? Okay.
Right.
Okay. And then creating different routes, different kind of like, scenarios, different things is extremely expensive. It's as if just you're going to make a new movie every time, right? Okay. But with AI, if we create that content generation, which you mentioned that you were talking about gaming as well, if the content generation, that piece, the path that you go through success in that scenario, for example, if you're going to go on just like, solve a problem, it can change through AI, then immediately you can just like, make that things very powerful and reduce the cost because now you create a framework. Of course, we need to focus on the engineering aspect of it, how we're going to engineer this platform. But that's going to be the power of it. The power is going to be that, okay, so we're going to have the virtualized environment and immersive environment, which is going to make an really authentic view of the world for learning, which focuses on the benefits of that virtualized environment, but also by embedding AI into the content that you will see in that virtual environment, it makes it very, very authentic. And each time you go there, you see a new thing, you see a new problem, you see a new path, right? Okay. And similar to what you just said about the gaming, it means that like your game is never going to be the same. You have this massive real world almost that you can just, it's same as like, I want to walk. You're never going to run out of like space to walk into, just like, realistically, right? Okay. Basically, you can walk all over. So I think the intersectionality, all of them, you just like, as a really important question. I think that's the future of education because one, it uses bunch of things that are having those pieces. And the second thing is that it is going to be all about experience. So I think I'm really excited to see what the future is going to bring for us and that end, right? So.
No, absolutely. And as you're telling me that, you're reminding me of just, I mean, it's sad, but it's also very nostalgic. The Power Nintendo magazines that used to come out back in 1987, and I was just looking at right now, they stopped in 2012 only because, I mean, if you think about it, like all these cheat codes that we would get from these video games to destroy and win a video game and whatnot, are kind of becoming obsolete because, again, of that personalization, which is not a bad thing because it keeps us engaged and it keeps us really wanting for more. So I'm going to ask you this last question before we finally close out our discussion today. But if you had one piece of advice to give to higher educational leaders who are hesitant about maybe investing in esports, getting involved with the esports teams, or starting a chapter, or even being one of those co-chairs to host it on their campus, what advice would you give them?
Like I would say, like any other technology, let's not be afraid of it. Let's just like be open-minded about it. So I think that will be my main advice. But at the same time, I would also say that like just consult talk to lots of people. Try to just like have a lot of consultation with people who have already done this or people who are already doing this, both from industry and academia, for two reasons. First of all, I mean, it's a good thing to just like, if I'm going through something, I can share my experience with you. The other piece is that these things change by day, right? So almost like, like if there's a technology now, the technology can change like a month from now. So you may just like have a better information. Your sports center would be better than mine because you just like ahead of, like basically I was ahead of you, right? So I think not be afraid of it, not be just like, be intimidated by it. This is the future. We need to embrace it and then have good conversations and advisory committees and advisory just like in bodies to help us with that. And last thing I would say that I think last time you mentioned this and it just resonated with me. We need to also look at the purpose of our system. The purpose of our system is for the students. It's not for me as an instructor or an administrator or as a director to feel comfortable. It is for us to make the environment for our students inclusive, welcoming, and it's all for them. Like any institution we have is without us. I mean, can you just imagine a university without students? No, it's almost it's laughable, right? So when we have this, they are the reason we are here. So because again, AI was the same thing when the first time came, is everyone was talking about, oh no, I'm not comfortable using my course. I mean, it's not that important. The important part is that like your students are feel comfortable, student wants this, and we are here for a student. So we need to just figure this out, right? And it applies to any other technology as well. So yeah, don't be afraid of it. Don't be intimidated by it. It is good. Again, it has downsides like any other technology, upside, but embrace it and try to just like, create a very welcoming environment for your students, because all the things that we talked about, they're going to improve the student experience in campus and ultimately their success.
Very well said. And that's something that I can tell you that is the number one focus. And even when I talk to my colleagues, there's a phrase that we use here at work, and that is, and in Spanish, we say para los estudiantes, but that basically means for the students. And that should always be our core focus. And I love how it still is and should be the core focus, even when you go to higher education, regardless of the student's age. They're your students. How are you going to support them? Pejman, thank you again so much for joining me for part 2 of our conversation.
Thank you so much, Chris. I really enjoyed our conversation. I'm actually, happily follow your pages and see other guests. You're doing a really great job, and I'm glad to be here with you today.
Well, thank you. And I hope our collaborations continue. Anything when it comes to breakthrough research or innovations, I hope that we continue to stay in touch as well. And because your insights on esports and emerging technologies, I love how it's just shaping the future of higher education, and it's very inspiring. And also, congratulations on your new role as a vice president of academic there at Conestoga College. But hey, I want to thank everyone for tuning in today to our episode today here at the Innovative Pedagogy. And again, thanks to Pejman Salehi for being our special guest. If you have any questions, thoughts, or just want to reach out, please feel free to send me an email to cbgarcia@sandiego.edu. Or you can also check out my website, garciaedtech.com. And we look forward to more and future conversations that we're going to have with more future educational leaders and influencers and people that are just making an impact on the lives of students every single day. Everyone have a great rest of your morning, afternoon, or evening, and we will catch you on the other side. All right, take care.